Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to be giving you a full garden tour. Right now it is early May and we're located in Virginia Zone 7A. We pretty much have a lot of our stuff planted out for the season. So I'll be going through the garden and showing you everything that we have going on. I think I'll start with a quick look at this greenhouse area. I'm loving the green stalk on the patio, and I've planted in flowers and herbs here. I have Greek oregano here, chamomile, just some various herbs. I do have some strawberries that have been here for a couple years, but usually the birds get to all the strawberries, so we'll see if we get to eat any of those. And then in the lower levels, I've planted in some beans, but I think they keep getting eaten by slugs or something. If they come up, that would be great. If not, I'll just put in some like marigolds or something here, because we did buy some from the nursery. And I also planted in some cucumbers and other little things, so I'll keep you updated as more things grow. Then in front of the greenhouse, this is where we have a lot of our strawberry plants, and they're just starting to ripen. I just picked the first ones like yesterday, I think. So we have lots of strawberries here. You can see they're starting to ripen here. A lot of them do get eaten by slugs and birds. So strawberries are one of those things that's like, they're fun to grow, but it's kind of hard to get like a nice, beautiful strawberry that hasn't been bitten. And also I think we need to fertilize in here because the strawberries look really small this year, so I haven't been taking very good care of these beds, honestly. So we'll just see what we get. Any strawberries that we get to pick from here will just be like little treats. So we're walking into the garden now. Just a word of warning, it might be a little noisy today. I think Iris is in heat, so she's kind of screaming, but we're gonna do the best we can. In this first bed, I am planning on planting our eggplants here. Those aren't in the ground yet because right now I do have some spring peas here. These are like the shelling peas, and I don't think that they get very tall. I think this is going to be about the max height for them. But once we get like a few rounds of those, I'll pull them out, and then I'm going to reset this bed with our eggplants and then probably do some bush green beans around them as well. Then I actually have 3 whole beds full of alliums. So on this side here, I have a whole bed of onions. On this side is also all onions with some peppers in the middle. And then over here, I have right here is onions. And then the taller plants are my garlic plants. Garlic is doing really well. Not time for garlic scapes yet, since these are hardneck garlic, but I think usually around like the end of May towards early June we will start to get scapes. But they are looking really nice. I should probably come in and fertilize them again just to give them a little boost of nutrients while they're starting to bulb up right now, since garlic is a really heavy feeder, but otherwise looking really great. In this bed of onions, I think this is a white onion. And you can see I do have to come in and like weed all the stuff in between the onions and then add mulch. So I am going to get to that this week, hopefully. Now I'm just jumping back and forth just because I'm showing all the onion beds at once. But this is the last onion bed where I just did onions along like the edges. And then in the middle, I did have some extra space. So I added in some pepper seedlings. These are store-bought seedlings because mine didn't look very good this year. So I bought these peppers called Karma. The seedlings at the nursery looked a lot better than mine, so just in case mine don't make it, I wanted to get some backups. And then in this bed, I have a lot of the pepper seedlings that I started, so you can see how they're just like super tiny. I'm not really sure what happened this year, but they seemed to kind of like get to a point, and then maybe I didn't harden them off correctly before I brought them out to the greenhouse, but they like dropped some of their leaves. But I put them in the ground anyway because a lot of the times, even if your seedlings don't look very good inside in their cells, once you plant them out, I feel like they tend to thrive when they're not like restricted, and they can regulate their moisture a lot better when they're in the ground. So I feel like already my seedlings are looking a lot better than they did, and I know they're still really small, but they were super tiny before. Like actually some of these look terrible. Like this has no leaves. I don't know why I even planted that, but yeah, I think some of these at least won't make it, so I'm at least giving them a shot. So in this bed I have a lot of my sweet peppers. So I have California Wonder, Chocolate Bell, Jimmy Nardello, Lesia, and yep, that's all of them for this bed. And then I planted my hot peppers separately somewhere else. I've got a nice flower in the corner here. It's a little overcast today, so it's not completely opened up. It's really pretty. And then on this trellis, I have also planted one tomato plant here. And then I think I have a cucumber plant over here, just so that I can use this vertical space. In the next bed, I have some snow peas climbing up the trellis on this side, and they are just starting to flower. So I haven't gotten any peas yet. These just started flowering like 2 days ago. The flowers are really pretty. And from my experience with snow peas, I think these will get pretty tall, but they will die back as it starts to heat up. So usually around like June, I'll start ripping my peas out. So since I know that's coming, I also sewed a jacuzzi gourd at the base of the trellis on the other side. By the time this is getting big enough to start climbing the trellis, I'm going to be pulling out those pea plants, so then this can take over pretty much the entire trellis. A couple years ago when I grew a jacuzzi gourd, it took up like the entire trellis all the way to the top and then back down the other side. So just that one plant, by the time it's like big enough, I think a lot of the other stuff that I've planted on this trellis will be gone. Then on the other side of the bed, we have our potato plants over here. This is just our first round. I'm probably going to do another round in a couple of weeks when I have like other spaces in the garden opening up. But these potatoes are red Norland potatoes. And then I also have some little areas of dill over here and then some kale over here, which I just direct sowed. All right, moving on to the other side, the last two beds. I have a whole area of Canterbury bells over here, which are going to start blooming soon. You can see that they have like their little flower buds here. The flower stalks are starting to go up, and Canterbury bells are so pretty. They're these like beautiful bell-shaped flowers, and last year when I grew them, they were in shades of like purple, blue, white, and pink, so a lot of cool tones, which I love. So yeah, those are gonna start blooming really soon, and I'm excited for those. I just have a couple things in this bed. I do have some leeks. This was overwintered from last year, so you can see it's starting to flower, but I'm actually making some potato leek soup today anyway, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull that out. You can see a little larva of the onion fly there, and this is why I cover all of my allium plants. So that's gonna be a worm that would eat up the stalk of the leek, but luckily I'm gonna harvest these anyway, so it's not that big a deal. But yeah, I don't want that in all of my allium plants, which is why I try and cover them as much as I can. And I have some other things that were overwintered since the fall too. So like these beets are also overwintered, so they're starting to flower. I'm just gonna go ahead and pull all of these so I don't forget. And we've just been eating the beet greens, and they're really delicious, just like tender and sweet. That is kind of like a crazy looking beet. It's like 4 beets in one. And yeah, the root's not very big, but the greens are beautiful. So I'm gonna come back for these, and then I had a kale plant that went to seed. I've been pulling out branches for the chickens. So yeah, not really a lot going on in this bed, and I'm gonna have to like clean it out and then put in new stuff for the summer. Just haven't really decided what I'm gonna put here yet. On the other side where this trellis is, I have more peas. I think these are telephone peas. So they are a tall shelling pea. And again, these ones have just started blooming as well. So yeah, really excited for those. They make a nice little garden stack because we don't grow enough to really like have a whole meal out of or preserve, but they are still really fun to grow since there are not that many things that we can grow in a short period of time in the spring. This is just a really quick thing for us to fill up the trellises early on. Then in the last bed on this side, I did plant some cucumbers down here at the base of this trellis, but I think I'm also gonna plan on putting my winter melons here on this trellis this year. I did get some to germinate this year, so that's good. So I'm either gonna put them on this side or I'm gonna plant them here when I pull out the peas. And then I have some of my determinate tomato plants here that are looking really nice. Determinate plants are like bushier plants. They're looking really good. I have celebrity tomatoes here, Ace 55 and BHN 1021. These are just some of my determinate tomatoes. And then I just transplanted in some basils in front of them. And I've got some more Canterbury bells in the corner of this bed as well. So we're gonna have lots of beautiful spring flowers soon. This Vego garden bed to the side is kind of like in transition at the moment. I have some things that are like from the spring, but we're starting to harvest and pull out a lot of stuff. So I do have all of this lettuce here, but at some point it's gonna start going to seed and be like really bitter in the summer heat. So that will probably only stay here for a few more weeks. I also have some lacinato or dazzling blue kale down the middle here. These are my spinach plants that I'm letting go to seed so I can collect the seeds. And then just like in between all of these empty areas where we've harvested, this is where I had a lot of beet plants and then more spinach plants that I've pulled out. I've added in some more store-bought pepper seedlings. These ones look really good. These are a bell pepper that will turn yellow. So yeah, by the time these get larger, I will have pulled out some of the other stuff that's kind of in their way, like these spinach plants. And then down on the other side of the bed was where we had a bunch of bok choy that we have harvested all of. So I've put in more of my bush tomato plants, more celebrity. I think I have raspberry Leanna down there, more Ace 55. And I think these will be great here because they don't really need a lot in terms of like trellising. I could probably just put a stake or a tomato cage and that will be fine for the determinate tomatoes. All right, let me go down this little garden area as well. I know I'm like really jumping around everywhere. I think I'm just like not used to doing garden tours because it's been a while, but I'll probably get my act together as the months go on and I do more of these throughout the year. But anyway, we have a little trellis here and I have some climbing peas that have just come up down here. These are rattlesnake pole beans, which are like a green bean. And yeah, they produce really well throughout the season. Then here I have a lot of my garlic chive plants over here, which are like the grassy looking plants. And I've been harvesting lots of those. They're super delicious. And then ever since I moved the blueberry plants here, they seem to have been really liking this spot. They bloomed last month and now we have lots of little baby blueberries, which is really nice. Hopefully we get some of them before the birds eat them this year. I might have to put some netting over them. And I have 3 bushes here and they all have blueberries on them. I don't have anything on this trellis yet. I tried to plant peas, but I think they were too covered up by leaves to really come up nicely. I am planning on putting my tomatillos here though. All right, so now moving on to the back gardens, which are like the in-ground gardens for the most part. And then at the end, I will also give you an update on the animals. So I'm gonna start on this left side here. I've cleaned up a little bit since last time, not completely yet, but I have mostly planted up this row over here. So in the very beginning, I have a few zucchini plants that have germinated. So there's one here. I also had some empty spots where I tossed in a watermelon plant. And I think we'll have plenty of space around here for the watermelon to like vine, since I know they can get very viney if they do well. Typically our watermelons don't actually do very well, so we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I've got more zucchini plants over here, these larger plants that have germinated. Then this next little bit here, I planted in some okra seeds, which are coming up now. There's a little seedling there. And in the very back, I had planted a bunch of zinnias just because I didn't really know what else to plant. So I thought, why not put some flowers in? And they did all germinate, but then something came and ate all of the tops of the plants. I think they were slugs or pill bugs. So you can see a little seedling that was here and got eaten. So I'm gonna start some new seeds and then transplant them in, and that way hopefully they'll stand a better chance of surviving because they'll be a little bigger when I put them in. So hopefully I'll be able to get those planted in soon. Then we have our new Vego garden bed here. We just did some harvesting from here. If you saw the last video, we picked a lot of radishes and it's just looking really good. Things have been growing a lot. Oh, that's terrifying. There's a huge spider inside this cabbage plant. I think you can see it over there. So definitely don't want to go sticking my hand in there. But yeah, I have some cabbage plants here that are looking good. I have my broccoli plants over here looking great. And then I thought my Napa cabbage plants died, but here they are, these like rosettes looking really nice. And it looks like it's about time to clear out a lot of my radish plants. Some of them are going to seed and they didn't really form a root because I'm not going to point any fingers, but somebody seeded the radishes on this side a little too thick and they were not able to form the bulbs. So Aaron, if you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, there's like a bunch of radishes that didn't really form roots. So I'm just gonna probably pull them out and give the greens to the chickens. And then in this back part of the garden, we have put up this little cattle panel trellis, which I'm really happy about because we were able to put some more tomato plants here. Most of our tomatoes are in the other part of the garden, which I'll show you in a bit, but I did have a lot of extras, so I'm glad I was able to have a place for them. These are all indeterminate tomatoes, and then we also add some marigolds to kind of fill in some of the space and add some color later on. But yeah, they're all gonna climb up this trellis. I do have a few lettuce plants that are left over from the fall that we have been eating, but they're starting to get a little bitter since they're older and it's getting hot, so these lettuce plants are probably going to come out soon. And then in this bed, this is our asparagus bed that we have been harvesting a lot from. You can see that they are starting to grow and produce their frilly fronds for the plants that are too skinny for us to harvest, but we have been harvesting lots of that, which is really nice. All right, and then for the star of the show, this is our brand new redone garden that was such a mess before and definitely is our favorite part of the garden this year, at least so far. And yeah, we're just really happy with how it's looking. So let me walk you through. We have 4 beds basically. The 2 middle ones have some cattle panel trellising for our tomatoes, and these 2 center rows are almost completely tomatoes. I have a few in the front here that were my sacrificial plants that I planted pretty early on in case they died, and you can tell that they're a lot bigger than the ones farther down just because they were transplanted a few weeks earlier. So I'm glad we took the chance with those. And then as we get farther on, these are the plants that we just transplanted, I think like a week ago. So they're a little bit smaller, but honestly they are just adapting super well and have grown so much since we put them in. So yeah, I have lots of different types of tomatoes in here, a lot of heirlooms, but I'm not really gonna go over all the types, I think probably until they start forming tomatoes, because there's not really any tomatoes to look at yet, so that wouldn't be very interesting. Then down the other way, about halfway down, is where the tomatoes end, and then down here I have a lot of my dry shelling beans. So if you remember when I did my seed haul back in the spring, I got a lot of dry beans from Rancho Gordo for eating, but then I saved some of those and planted them and they came up great. So it was a great way to try some new heirloom bean varieties. So I ended up planting the Royal Corona bean, which is like this massive, like the beans are like this big, massive white beans. So really excited to see what the plants look like because the beans are so big. I imagine the plants and the pods are also going to be enormous. We also planted the Christmas lima beans, which had a really good flavor. Those are the ones that people said like taste really meaty, and we did really like them. And then in the back I have Good Mother Stallard beans. Those ones are not from Rancho Gordo. I just bought those I think a couple years ago, I think from Baker Creek. But yeah, some really cool heirloom dry bean varieties that I'm excited for. In the back row here, we have more onions that I've planted here. These are a lot of my yellow onions. They're looking great. Then down the row on the right, I wanted a huge wall of mammoth sunflowers down this edge. A lot of times I can't grow sunflowers because the deer come and eat them, but since we fenced in this area, I feel fairly confident that we can grow sunflowers without them getting eaten. So I really wanted like a whole line of them just because they are so fun to have in the summer, especially those super tall mammoth ones. I think one year we grew them, they were like 8 feet tall. They're just such a statement, and I think a whole wall of them will be so fun. So yeah, a lot of them are growing really well now. So here are a few over here. And then at the base of them, I've also planted some climbing beans because the idea is the climbing beans can wrap around the sunflower stalks as they grow. And then in between, I've also planted in some bush beans. So essentially this whole row is gonna be sunflowers and various types of beans. I also have a volunteer potato here that's getting quite large, but at some point we'll harvest it so it'll be out of the pathway. And then yeah, I have more sunflowers coming up here. And then I had to replant a lot of my bush beans because they were eaten by slugs. And then in the back, I planted edamame, which is another type of bean that I really like to grow. They're soybeans. So these are the edamame plants over here. And then I have my rhubarb plants here. I haven't harvested anything else from them yet. But yeah, that's it for this row. Then on the very last side, I have this little area where I'm gonna grow some cucumbers. And then a lot of this row down to about here is all peppers. I think I did mostly like all my hot peppers here. They're not all like super hot, even like the more mild ones I just put here, because I didn't have space in the other bed. But I started from like least spicy to most spicy. So I've got my shishitos here, which are, I wouldn't even really consider them a spicy pepper, but sometimes they can be spicy. So I just put them here. And then I have my pepperoncini peppers, which are supposed to be a little spicy. I've never grown these before, but I am super excited for them. Then I have my jalapenos. Then we're getting progressively spicier. I have my Korean hot peppers, my cayenne peppers, and then the sugar rush peach. And these are more of the peppers that I started, and you can see that they're just like really small, so I'm hoping that they can make it through. These ones look decent, the sugar rush peach. But yeah, again, since I didn't really have a lot of faith in my tiny seedlings, I did buy some more from the nursery, and then I got some serrano peppers from the nursery, and the size difference between these pepper plants and the ones that I started, it's kind of night and day. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened with my seedlings this year, but let's just hope they make it through. And then I didn't have enough pepper plants to finish up the entire row, so what I did was I just went in and filled in the rest of this row with bush beans. You can see where I've just like done the little holes where I've planted in the bush beans, but I think that was just yesterday or the day before, so they haven't come up yet. So that is most of the garden. I'm just going to show you one other area that is our pumpkin patch that we just set up this year. It used to be our cut flower garden, but we're not doing cut flowers anymore. So I decided to turn it into a little pumpkin patch. Well, half of it is still flowers, just because it's like perennials and stuff that reseeded itself. So I'm going to let those grow, and it will be kind of like a wild, almost like a wildflower garden. But the other half I did want to turn into a pumpkin patch, just so that we're using up the space. And I think it's going to be a really fun area. So just for reference, this is like the main part of our garden, and then if you look over to the left, that's where our old cut flower garden is and our pumpkin patch this year. So let me walk over there. We have a beautiful dogwood tree blooming here. It's really pretty. Dogwoods, I think, are the state tree or flower or something of Virginia, so it's pretty cool. They are really beautiful, but they also, I think, have a reputation for being stinky. Like, they kind of smell like feet. Luckily I don't smell it too much, but I'm also not trying to, because I don't want to be smelling feet. But anyway, moving on to our pumpkin patch. So in the fall, our neighbors had cut down a lot of trees and shredded mulch, and they were nice enough to give us some of that mulch. So we just covered up a lot of this area because it had gotten really weedy. And then to add in like little mounds for the pumpkin patch, what I would do is throughout the fall and winter, when I would like kind of collect the manure from the goat area, I would have enough to like fill up half a bucket or a whole bucket, and I would just make these like little mounds, and those have just been aging like all winter. And it's kind of hard to see like the mound, but like this is the mound here. So under the mulch is just like a big pile of aged manure, which I think will be really nice for these pumpkins to grow in. I think pumpkin seeds are like one of the hardiest seeds in terms of like going through animals' digestive tracts and growing in manure, I guess. A lot of times we get volunteer pumpkins like in our compost. So I figured it would be fine to plant into the poop. It is aged like a few months, but just in case it was a little fresh, I thought it would be fine. Also, by the time we are actually harvesting pumpkins, it's going to be like another 3 or 4 months down the road. I don't know, maybe it's not recommended, but that's what we're doing. So I just have a lot of different kinds of pumpkins here, and they're just starting to come up, so you can't really see too much, but I think it's going to be really fun once it starts covering up this area. If you've ever grown like pumpkins or winter squash, you know that they can vine for like feet and feet, and they can really take over a space. So I think that's going to be really fun. But anyway, some of the varieties I have are Long Island cheese. I've got a flat white, kind of like a Cinderella shaped pumpkin here. This one is another Cinderella pumpkin. This is like an orange reddish one. Then I've got a red curry pumpkin, which is kind of like a teardrop shaped Japanese pumpkin. And I think in the back I do have some butternut squash. It's kind of hard to see because I didn't realize I had these flowers that were going to come up here. I forget what these flowers are called, but they are perennials and they have come up every year since I planted them a few years ago, which is really nice. They were not up when I seeded these pumpkins in here, so I have a butternut squash amongst all of these flowers, so we'll see how that does. And then pretty much the rest of the back of the area is kind of wild. I'm just gonna let all the perennials and anything else grow and try to keep it a little bit in check, but it's a lot of work, so usually I just let the flowers go a little bit wild. But you can see I have a lot of gladioli. Is that the plural of gladiolus? I have a lot of gladioli coming up here. And then the back is like basically a huge forest of yarrow, which is a really good plant, but it does take over. So yeah, that's pretty much all we have going on in this garden. All right, next let's have a look at the animals, starting with the chicks that are in this mobile coop for the moment. They're not quite chicks anymore though, they are getting pretty big. So we've got our 4 chicks here. Everyone's doing really well. I think they're about 10 weeks old right now. So this is our Plymouth Blue, Golden Laced Wyandotte, and then we have 2 black Australorps over here. So yeah, really happy everyone's doing really well, and I think they're actually going to be getting integrated in with the big chickens really soon, maybe this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. Wish us luck. It's always like a whole thing when you need to like integrate new chickens in. And hopefully they don't get picked on, but they're at the point where they're like big enough that they can pretty much like run away or fend for themselves, I think. They're not like vulnerable like they would be as little chicks. So yeah, I think it'll be okay. You can tell they're like kind of scared. I'm just trying to get them to not fly out right now, but yeah, they're doing really well. Looking like real chickens, just smaller. Here's a look at our big chickens. They're doing well. I don't think I mentioned it, but we did actually lose one of our chickens last month. So we're down to 9 chickens here now. So 8 hens and 1 rooster. So kind of sad, but I'm glad that we did get new chicks this year because yeah, things like that are just going to happen as they get older. So it's nice to be able to introduce some new chickens, keep our numbers up. But yeah, otherwise doing really well. And then here are the goatees. Pretty much always demanding to be the main characters of the homestead. They're such little attention seekers, but they're really sweet and really cute. I think they're really enjoying spring. There's a lot more to kind of like nibble on and explore. So yeah, I think they're loving life here. Oh my gosh, Heathy. Why are they so silly? So that is it for this early May homestead garden tour. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.